everyone. Welcome to Just Sayin. We are here today to talk about last night's winter premiere of This Is Us. So excited. I'm Andrea Belke, and we are streaming live on PeopleTV, Twitter, Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube from New York City. Well, joining me in studio are two experts and super fans of This Is Us. It's executive editor at People, Kate Coyne, and staff writer at Entertainment Weekly, Samantha. Hi, Phil. Hello, ladies.
Hello. Hi.
Thanks for joining us. So excited to break this down. And you guys can be a part of the action, too. So throughout the show, we'll be looking at what fans in the Twitter sphere had to say both last night and today. So tweet us with the hashtag JustSayin to get in on the conversation. All right, so let's get into it. Last night's episode began a month after Kevin's DUI, with him in a fancy rehab and the whole family planning to go visit him. When they get there, Beth, Toby, and Miguel are sent away. We'll talk about their scenes a little later because the immediate family is in for one heck of a therapy session. So first of all, what do we think of seeing Kevin as Mr. Mayor? We haven't seen him in a while on this hiatus. So we see Kevin in the rehab. What are we thinking about that?
I wasn't surprised that he was Mr. I mean, that's exactly what you would expect. He's a TV star, a soon-to-be movie star. He's incredibly charismatic, so I think a rehab setting is exactly where you would expect him to sort of work the room and charm everybody.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I was a little bummed because I feel like the mayor version of Kevin is kind of my least favorite, and I was really hoping we would get to see more of, you know, the dark month. It sounds terrible, but when he was at his worst was when I liked him the most.
I did too. I really connected with him when he was really low. And now he's kind of back to that, you know, elevated version of himself.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And obviously, like, much of it is a facade, but still, I was hoping we would get to see him cry some more and just really figure out his problems. And obviously, he still has problems, but he was putting on a much better face.
Yeah, well, Twitter was really energized when they saw the actress who was playing the therapist, Kate Burton. People were tweeting about it. Miss Berry93 said, "Wait, no, they didn't bring Ellis Gray into this. I'm not ready. She couldn't be trusted in Grace or a scandal, LOL." Did you know once we saw Kate Burton as the therapist, we were in for a wild ride?
I mean, I was pleasantly surprised to see her. I was also ultimately pleasantly surprised to see that we weren't in for a wild ride where she was concerned. I mean, it was a very restrained performance from Kate Burton. I think that it was quite clearly not a Shondaland performance for her. I mean, she's best known for what she did on Grey's, and even more so for playing Sally, the unhinged vice president on Scandal. And so I was actually, from a sort of inside media standpoint, I was sort of thrilled for people to get to see her not chewing a bunch of scenery and being psychotic and deranged, because she's such a good actress that kind of very restrained, measured performance is something that, ironically, she used to be known for before Shondaland came into her life, and so I was sort of thrilled.
Yeah, I was actually a little bummed we didn't see more of her, just because.
It was a very restrained use of Kate Burton in terms of screen time. I mean, it's a little bit like getting Derek Jeter to come play on your Little League team and then being like, "We'll give you one at bat, Derek."
Yeah.
Like, you've got Kate Burton, like, surely there was a part of me that thought, okay, well, any second now she's going to rip into everyone in this therapy room, or she's going to, like, put them all in their place, or there must be some epic speech. But again, I think that's Shondaland conditioning, because epic speeches, you know, from Kate Burton, that's what you would expect on Scandal or on Grey's. And, you know, she didn't have a lot of screen time. She didn't have a lot of dialogue. It did make me wonder, are we then not done?
Yeah.
Are we not done here?
Right.
Like, are we gonna? No, we haven't left Rehab.
Not impressed. So we got to see a little more.
I'm not impressed with how much they used her. I'm very impressed with her, but I want more of her.
I agree. Well, the episode really revolved around Kevin's problems, titled "The Fifth Wheel." After all, what do we think about Kevin's politeness at first during the session? How he went around? It was very passive aggressive. Were you guys just knowing something big was coming?
Yeah, I feel like it was very obvious that this therapy session could not just be like fake apologies and fake, it's not a big deal. You know, Kevin, I think it was a very realistic way to start it, because it's always kind of that awkward thing at the beginning where you don't exactly know what to say. How far are we going into this? Are we dredging up old issues? So I felt it was very realistic, but yeah, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. It doesn't need to start kind of slow and surface level. Well, the therapist said that Kevin had to dig deeper and say what his issues really were. Now, Randall and Twitter, and myself, we all got very nervous. Outsmarted Mommy wrote, "I'm not sure I'm emotionally ready for this Pearson therapy session. Something big is coming." And it did. So it all comes out with the therapist prying. First, they spoke about how Kevin felt less important to his parents than Kate and Randall because of Randall's connection with Rebecca and Kate's with Jack. So let's break this down. First, why is Rebecca and Randall's relationship so sweet to watch? What did you guys think?
Well, I think you've been on the journey with them. I mean, you've seen Rebecca go from somebody who lost a child, who was then essentially given a child that she wasn't even sure she wanted at first. I mean, she was open about that Jack was the cheerleader for it originally. And then you've seen that she had the most conflicted dealings with William and with an understanding of where Randall actually came from. And I mean, I still don't know if we know if Jack ever knew about William, if Jack ever, or if that was just a secret that Rebecca kept solely to herself. And so she has so much invested in Randall and has a kind of emotional connection to him because of it, that you also just feel like you want her to have Randall because Randall really needs her too. I mean, he doesn't have as close a bond to his two siblings. He doesn't, you know, he struggles a lot with the idea of his father's identity and who's his real dad. And so Rebecca is kind of all he has a lot of the time. And so it's just very easy to root for that relationship and for that bond.
Yeah, I also think two people that are reading on a vacation to the Poconos at a cabin, like they are two kindred spirits.
Yeah.
Because I would not be reading. That's the last thing I'd be doing. I'd be out in the woods or playing football.
Well, they were in the woods reading at least.
Right, at least they were in the woods
reading outdoors.
It was cute though. They're very
adorable.
similar. Let's talk about Jack and Kate. They also have a really close relationship, and we saw them when they were younger. What was it like for you watching their storyline and then it also revolving around food?
I mean, I love just the way that Jack can't say no to his little girl. You know, it's the daddy-daughter thing, and I think it's always just really special. And I think I like enjoy watching him kind of struggle to discipline her. Obviously, there's like the adult in me who sees Rebecca's side and is like, come on, man, like stop giving her everything she wants.
Yeah.
But I think it's really sweet, and they just have like such a beautiful connection. And that scene, you know, when he's telling her that she's perfect, and it's just like, it's so enjoyable, and I feel like very relatable for a lot of people just to be that close.
Definitely. And speaking of Kate's relationship with food, this leads us to a big bombshell in therapy where Kevin says that they are a family of addicts, which obviously brings up Jack's alcoholism. Now, Twitter and the rest of the Pearsons did not react to this kindly. Nicole tweets, when Barbara says we're going to explore some bad things about Jack Pearson, he's a perfect angel, Barbara. You don't know him like we do. Now, Kate and Sam, did you react like Nicole? Do you kind of feel that, you know, Jack Pearson is untouchable in a way?
I mean, I actually reacted, I think, ultimately the way Rebecca reacted, which is to say his addiction was the one thing about him that wasn't perfect. The one thing. And that's a pretty rare thing if you've only got one thing about you that's not perfect.
Yeah.
And I also do think that the ultimate takedown that Rebecca delivers of using the word addict, you know, it's one thing, and it seems like a semantics issue, but it's one thing to say that somebody struggled with alcoholism, or you know, struggled with an addiction to alcohol. It's another thing to say that someone's an addict. And you know, I think that it was out of line to take this character who we do all know and love and who everybody in that room knows and loves, and to reduce him to a label like addict and almost make it seem like that's who any of them are. You know, Kevin is a pill addict. Kate is a food addict, you know, and Jack was an alcohol addict is really reductive. Yeah. And so I think that hopefully that scene was designed to make us all feel as defensive as we probably did.
Definitely. I feel people they get really riled up when you talk about Jack Pearson in any negative way.
Yeah.
And on Twitter, one user broke it down and talked about each of the children separately, said each child has their issues with the family. Kevin wanted his parents' attention, Kate wanted self-acceptance, and Randall wanted to fit in, which I think kind of describes it pretty accurately. Now, even before Rebecca's big breakdown, which we're going to talk about, so much was going on in therapy. I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but what did you make of the whole therapy session and the blow-up, the Randall show and everything?
I actually loved it. I felt like I really enjoyed this episode because I like the fact that I totally agree with everything you said about the addict aspect, but just the fact that they're talking about the fact that their childhood wasn't perfect, I feel like was just so revelatory for this series, because so much of it has been how wonderful it was and how great our parents are, while we as viewers are seeing kind of other sides and how things weren't perfect. So I loved watching them all kind of like drudge up this stuff, and it was, I think, one of the most emotional episodes as a viewer to kind of of watch, but it felt like it was like a long time coming. It felt earned.
Did it make you think about your family and issues that your family, because that for me, I was thinking, oh man, I feel like my family would benefit from this group therapy session. As painful as it would be, we have so many issues that just aren't talked about, and I think that's so common with a lot of families.
Yeah, all families have issues that you just don't go there, and to a certain extent, and this will be interesting to see what future episodes do. I think a lot of times the reasons you don't go there are because it's not going to change anything. You're not going to suddenly become a different person. I don't think that Rebecca is now suddenly going to take up scrapbooking with Kevin, or they're going to have a thing. Like, it's not going to change certain types of arguments. Nothing will ever bring back Jack. Nothing will ever, make Kate suddenly think, oh, I didn't need to compare myself unfavorably to my mother for all those years. I think old resentments, old perspectives really die hard, and some of them just don't ever die. And so it will be interesting to see how much change is really affected by this therapy session.
Definitely, but there were a lot of revelations, and it all led to Rebecca's reveal about what it was like to raise Kevin, so take a look at this clip.
Kevin, can you stop? I'm flustered, and it's not kind of you
what
you're doing.
Well, just admit that you love Randall more. We can stop pretending to be this
No, he was
little
just
family.
easier! He was easier, and he didn't recoil when I touched him, and he wasn't some sullen teenager who was angry at me for no reason, and he didn't abandon me and move away after his father died.
I mean, this was really hard to watch for me, and definitely emotional. How did you feel watching this? I know you have an interesting perspective, because when I watched that, we were talking before, when I watched that, I was like, oh wow, Kevin left, after his dad died, and that was like horrible to hear, and you also feel for Kevin, but you have a different take on it.
Well, actually, watching that clip again, I think the camera work kind of tells you which accusation is going with which child, because I don't think it's all on Kevin. I mean, he's her favorite, Randall, out of all three of her kids. That means the other two are both the runners-up. And I think, she says he didn't, recoil when I touched him, and the camera shows Kevin. So I think, and he wasn't some sullen teenager who was mad at me for no reason. Camera shows Kate, and we've all seen the flashbacks that show that, to Rebecca's point of view, Kate just seemingly hated her for wearing a size 4. I mean, for being a good singer. I mean,
to be fair, Kevin also was really bad to her too.
Was also, and then she says, and he didn't abandon me, after Jack died. And I think that, judging from what you understand of their timeline and their codependency, I would think that's actually leveled at both of them, because I have a feeling they both headed out to California, essentially. Because we saw from the very first episodes how codependent they are, living together in LA, being together in Los Angeles. And so I feel like that isn't all on Kevin. That's Kevin and Kate, which is why the camera shows both of them. And it does show really why Randall is the favorite, because he does still live relatively nearby. He didn't, move far away. He had grandkids. I think that Kevin is the fifth wheel. I think Kate is still, because Kate had what she had with Jack at the very least. But I think that breakdown really was lobbed at both of those kids.
That's why the show is so amazing. There's all these theories, and you can just sit here and analyze what each camera angle and shot means. How did you feel watching this scene? Because I felt like when Rebecca breaks down, it was kind of the high point of emotion.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I would have been bummed if they didn't get to that point in the therapy session. I was waiting for it. Yeah. And at one point when they were about to walk out, I was like, if that's the end of this therapy session, I'm gonna be really upset. So I loved it. I think Rebecca bottles a lot of stuff up. She holds a lot in, especially when we see the older version of her. It's often a lot of just kind of like being there for my kids and trying to say what's right. So I loved watching her kind of explode and share her side and making those kids feel a little bad.
And in terms of Mandy Moore acting in this scene, what do we think of Mandy's performance? Because I thought she was excellent.
Yeah, amazing.
I thought she was phenomenal as well. But I feel like lately, this is what all the episodes have done, is that just when you think like, oh, this person might not be the strongest performer in this ensemble, then you get an episode. I mean, this is how I previously felt about Kevin until his breakdown episode. And
oh my gosh,
he's like losing it on the front lawn of that plastic surgeon's house.
Yeah, that got me.
Oh my God, Justin Hartley's a phenomenal actor, you know? And so I feel like just about every episode I have a moment where I find myself thinking, you know, insert name here should get an Emmy because they're an incredible actor. So that's definitely how I felt about Mandy Moore.
That is a really good point. I completely agree about the Justin Hartley scene and everything. People on Twitter loved Mandy's performance, of course. Emelena wrote, Mandy Moore did that. And Kane said, why the Mandy Moore isn't winning awards for This Is Us is really beyond me. And then overall, not just Mandy, what do we think of the acting? Especially, you know, winner of Golden Globe, Sterling K. Brown. What do we think of him and everything?
Sterling always gets me. I mean,
I know.
Sterling. It's so good.
Is there anyone more perfect?
It's the Sterling K. Brown on the verge of tears moments that you're just like, because he doesn't just break down. He's always like fighting it a little bit, and there's like a trembling thing, and he did it on the bench at the end this time, and it's just sort of like, it kills you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll also give props to Chrissy Metz. I think the hardest I cried at one point was just the camera cut to her, and it was just her face when her mom was breaking down.
Yes,
she wasn't
I know the look you're talking
speaking,
about.
but yeah, just watching her, all of them in that therapy scene, I feel like brought their A game.
Just one look. And the reason that the scene works is they're all amazing actors. And the creator of the show, Dan Fogelman, chimed in on Twitter talking about the acting. He said, my favorite part about that therapy scene is that these actors have flushed out characters and relationships so thoroughly that you understand each of their points, even as you disagree with some of them. You are with them all. Amazing work by incredible actors. Yeah, so before we move on from the therapy scene, I want to know, who did you relate to the most in this scene?
I feel like I am more of a Kate in terms of she didn't really say much, and she just kind of like sat back and watched it unfold. I feel like that's me in a therapy session.
Can I be the therapist? I don't know.
Yes,
I don't know. I feel like I watched the whole scene, and I did at some point find you know, when he said we're a family of addicts, you know, I thought, oh, you better turn to your sister now and say you're addicted to food. Like, this shouldn't just be about Jack having an addiction and you having an addiction. Like, your sister clearly has an addiction, you know? And so I was happy. But, you know, I found myself a lot in the therapy scenes thinking, like, somebody better hurry up and say this, or I really hope somebody points out that, or I really, you know, and so as each of those points got made, you know, when Randall was basically defending Rebecca and saying, you know, your childhood wasn't so bad, Kevin, like she rubbed your tummy when you were sick, and I mean, there was plenty of good there. I was like right there, like, yeah, that's right. And then when Kevin did the like, it's the Randall show at your house, and I just thought, oh my God, I never really realized that. But yeah, that's true too. Like, I just, you know, I was fascinated by the entire ping pong match of all of it.
I mean, I almost hate to admit it, but I relate to Kevin because I have attention problems. And I don't think that he had, like, I don't think he does it, like, knowingly. I think that it's issues that he had as a child and probably how he's made up, but kind of tends to make things about himself, which is revealing a lot about me. But at least I'm aware of it. All right, so Mandy Moore had another great scene in this episode with Milo Ventimiglia, where she talked about how she has to be the bad guy because Jack is the good guy. So take a look at this.
I'll be more firm with Kate about the food. Okay? I will. I could be the bad guy.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't, but that's okay. Plus, I'll give our kids something to talk about in therapy one day.
So much therapy talk. J Buffy Angel tweeted, I've never related to Rebecca more than her bad guy speech. Hashtag motherhood, hashtag truth, hashtag this is us. What do you think of this moment? It's always so nice to see those two together.
It is.
I thought it was really sweet that it was a very honest moment, but I love that they both just kind of accepted it. Like, there could have been a version of this scene where she said, I'm always the bad guy. It's not fair. You have to step up. I'm angry at you. And it was just kind of like, no, it's okay. I get that you're the good guy. I'm the bad guy. Like, we're a team. It works. I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, it was nice that there wasn't any sort of facile resolution to that, where it was like, you know, when he said, I'll do better at it, I thought, no, you won't. And then she said, no, you won't.
Yeah.
And you know, that felt real and true.
Yeah. Well, after the intense therapy session, the big three reconnected by the pond, you know, after the rehab, but clearly there are still issues bubbling. I mean, what do you think of the wrap up? Do you think overall therapy session helpful? I think obviously for viewers, it got stuff out. Do we think that this was overall good for their family, or is it going to cause more issues?
I think it was good for their family. I definitely think it was good for their family. And I even thought the way that at the very end, you know, Randall was able to say, like, so we're confirmed that I'm her favorite then. You know, that felt like, you know, an interesting way, much like the good guy, bad guy thing of acknowledging, like, there isn't a real resolution to this that's, you know, cut and dry, but we're just going to call it what it is, and this is how it works. You know, Kevin isn't going to suddenly find some revelation that's going to make him feel like he wasn't the fifth wheel through his whole childhood. He won't really know that Rebecca came and slept on the floor next to him, and he won't remember a lot of the stuff that she obviously remembers. But I think that it will be good for them in the sense that they just got it out there. But I also think there's like a whole can of worms has been opened now. I mean,
for sure.
All this stuff is out there. I think with the other stuff that happened in the episode that wasn't within the therapy session, the fact that Kate is binge eating again, you know, I think that is now a plot point that.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but you did mention the Kevin, you know, going into the room to sleep with his mom. You know, how did you feel about that scene? Because I thought that was very touching and kind of shows a lot about how people perceive things.
Yeah, I was a little worried when they first started airing it that he was just going to sleep on the floor by himself and that was going to be the end of that scene. So I was very happy when she kind of got up and went over there and you saw that, like, he might perceive that he's the fifth wheel and that's his truth and that's totally fair, but that, like, she was there for him and she obviously loves all her kids. And I do think it's incredibly sad that neither of them seem to remember that moment.
I know.
Well, you don't know that she doesn't remember it. You don't know because she says to him, we did have our moments, we did have things. Like, she says very emphatically, like, I know that we did, and I know I'm not making that up. We did have our moments. And he is like, I guess maybe we did. Like, he equivocates all over the place and is like, I guess maybe sort of we did. But she's adamant that they did. And I think it's because she does remember that she did that stuff, but he doesn't. And he may not, you know, I kept saying I have this, like, scenario where she then woke up earlier than everybody else and went downstairs to make breakfast, and he'll never know that, you know, that's why I was actually screaming at my TV, like, scoop him up and put him in the bed with you. Like, don't just leave him there on the floor. You got to pick him up because, you know.
I mean, this show brings out a lot of emotions. You're screaming at your TV. What was the biggest tear-jerking moment of this episode? Because everyone talks about it being such a tear-jerking show.
Yeah. For me, it was actually the three siblings just sitting on the bench having like a much calmer moment. But I just remember it was, you know, when Randall kind of asks his brother to look at him and he apologizes and they both kind of just lean on Kate. Like, that was just so simple and so sweet that's what actually I think got me the most.
Yeah, it was the Sterling K. Brown slow cry. Like, that's the thing. When he does the look at me and he starts to really fight back the emotion about, like, I did a bad job today because you were really there for me and I did. Yeah, that'll get you.
Yeah, Mandy Moore's moment got me because then I thought of, oh wow, that must have hurt so much at that time, which we're probably going to see that time when Kevin and or Kate leave. But I thought, yeah, definitely, that made me tear up a little bit. Justin W. Los says on Twitter that he needs therapy after watching the episode's therapy session. I think I do too, or just in general. We can't talk about this episode without talking about the new big three / as Beth said, the others. Do you like this trio? I think we needed the comedic relief.
Yeah, we did. We really did. And I got a really big, I mean, I always get a kick out of Beth. I thought from the very first scene, you know, where she was talking about how she was just going to roll her eyes and sigh, you know, passive aggressively as much as she possibly could. You know, she's just fantastic and great.
Speaking of Beth, people online were loving her, particularly in this episode. Tia tweeted, "We do not deserve Beth and all her realness. We do not deserve it." Susan Kelechi Watson is too good for words. And Noelle Harmony said, "Randall, I was raised by white. Beth, everyone knows." A bunch of cry face emojis. That was great. Toby's storyline this episode focused on finding out that Kate was hiding junk food, which she ultimately revealed to him. Yet you talked about the food a little bit and this being an issue, but how do we feel about Kate and her relationship with Toby at this point?
I mean, I think the fact that she does get to tell him before he calls her out on it shows growth. Yeah. And I think it's a really good sign for their relationship to where she's at that point to where because, like, you know, in the beginning especially, she was not the most forthcoming, whether it was talking about her dad or talking about other deep-seated issues. And so I think it shows that, like, there is a trust level there and she wants to kind of attack this as a team. So it's a good sign.
But the big question, do we like the name Katobi for both of them?
No.
No, Kate
Toby
Coyne?
fan. No, that's a big no, on that. But I am a fan in a way of the binge eating plotline, because I think what got brought up in the therapy issue, this idea that she is addicted to food, and in the flashback scenes where you see Rebecca saying, you know, to Jack, she's obsessed with food. So you see that even, you know, at an early age, she had this weird compulsion about eating, and when was she going to eat, and the fire pit will be great for s'mores and for hot dogs, and this fixation on it. I think what will be interesting is in the first season, particularly with that retreat she went to, we've been designed to think that her obesity is linked to her dad's death, that she's got this dependent relationship on food because of this horrible tragedy. But what we're starting to uncover more and more is that, no, that doesn't actually match up. Like, this has been going on throughout her childhood and long before he died. So what exactly is fueling this? And, you know, I frankly, I hope they have a good answer for this. I hope they're not just sort of painting themselves into a corner where they feel like, oh, we'll explain it at some point, because they really better come up with something a little bit better than, I saw my mom's blouse size was a size small one day when I was, you know, snooping through her closet, and she has a way better singing voice than I do, and so that's why I'm fat. Like, they've got to flesh this out more, and I felt like last night's plot was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I like that plot line as well, because it is such a real issue that's going on with a lot of women today, and men as well. Miguel had a big moment where he acknowledged that he married his best friend's wife, and then we also got that great Star Wars analogy, so take a look at this clip.
I'm one of the fighter pilots who doesn't even have a name.
That's not true, Miguel.
It is. And I'm okay with that. You see, Toby, those four lived through something very unique together. They lived through the loss of the best man that any of us will ever know. And that's why they get to be on the inside, Toby. That's why they get the lightsabers.
This was such a powerful scene. Crystal on Twitter reacted to that by saying, okay, I did not think Miguel would be the one to choke me up. How did you react at this moment? Because a lot of people get worked up by Miguel, and they're not a fan of Miguel because of everything. Does he work you up as much as other people?
He doesn't work me up as much as other people, but I felt like this was a huge moment for him because, you know, from literally the get-go, people were hating on Miguel because all we knew about him was that he
never
married his best friend's wife. He's been kind of like, he dug himself in a hole a little bit. And I felt like this moment was the most I've liked him. The fact that he was the one to kind of step up and say, I know it's hard that like they're on the inside and you guys get to complain, but no, they get to be. And the fact that you see that he genuinely respects that and is okay with that is the most I've ever liked him.
Yeah, and even before that speech where they're all sitting at the bar talking about the Pearson no-fly zone, like topics you can't discuss, inner sanctums you can't breach, and one of them says like, you know, he had a 70s porn mustache and and even there, Miguel's like, you're getting close to my no-fly zone.
Yeah.
Like, that he is still defending Jack's memory, that he's not this turncoat or this traitor, which, frankly, I may be the most pro-Miguel person here because I was all good with him the minute we learned that they reconnected on Facebook only a few years ago. Like,
That is
okay,
true.
then
No, that's
fair
a
game.
really good point.
It's been decades. You go right ahead. Like the minute we were all clear, although we're not fully clear because we have the scenes from next week, but the minute it was at least clear that it wasn't some like sleazy clandestine affair that was happening before Jack even died, then I don't, you know.
You're right. Thank God for that Facebook Messenger scene.
Yeah.
For something. Proves that he was not skeezy. Speaking of Miguel, though, in next week's preview, we apparently hear the answer to the question, were you in love with my mom when my dad was alive? How do you think that's going to play out? Do we think, like you said, it came after the fact?
I think we're going to get another really good speech from Miguel, which says like everything and nothing. You know, it's going to be some speech to and please play this next week if I'm this right, and I promise you I have not seen a screener episode. But it's going to be some speech to the effect of, she's the most amazing woman in the world. Everyone who knows her loves her. How could I not have loved her? You know, this is what's so incredible about your mom, especially to someone like Kevin, who frankly needs to like get a little bit more on the Rebecca train. You know, I think it's going to be an ode to Rebecca without specifically saying I was in love with her back in the day. You know, I think it's going to be more, I always knew what there was to love about her, and now I'm in love with her. So I feel like it's going to kind of split hairs a little bit and not. There is no way he's just going to say, yes, I was, or no, I was not. Like, it's not going to go down like that.
Yeah, I think it'll be, I agree. I think he'll talk about how amazing she was and how he always knew that, but then there will be that element of like, but I didn't see her this way, or I saw her in a new light a couple years ago, because they can't try so hard to kind of get people to love Miguel, like with his speech in this week's episode, and then just have it be like, nope, he was skeezy, he was going after her the whole time. So they can't pull a full like 180 on that.
Yeah, all right, so to wrap things up, we can't talk about This Is Us without getting into your theories. How do you think, I mean, everyone asked the question, how do you think Jack dies? When are we going to find out? Well, I know you guys have theories. Kate?
I'm the only person who is, I guess, gullible enough to think his house has the crappiest wiring known to man, which we've now seen him attempt to repair himself. The lights keep going out. They have a washing machine that a whole episode was devoted to, a washing machine that many theories are out there that the greatest, the episode was called the greatest washing machine in the world. I think that washing machine shorts out, and he probably does something heroic running back into the house to try to, save something or someone, or God only knows, and he dies in a house fire.
You don't think it's alcoholism related? See,
No.
I don't know. We think it's not just going to be the fire.
Yeah.
I think it's going to, This Is Us, the writers, they're going to throw us for a loop. It's going to be something completely different. I think it would be too obvious otherwise.
It's got to be a fire plus something, whether it is like a heroic element of him saving something, or if it's like the house catches fire and he runs to go warn someone, but he gets into a car drunk and gets into an accident or something. I feel like there's an added element there.
I put money on, not just the fire.
Okay. I certainly like a world in which he does not burn to a crisp. I mean, that is incredibly grim and awful. Yes. And so I could be on board with the theory of he gets into a car and slams into a tree or something. I do not think the death will in any way be alcohol related.
Yeah.
Because I think if nothing else in that therapy session, we would have been given some kind of Easter egg about like, and his addiction killed him, or like, how can you not pretend that this addiction is not a bigger deal unless Rebecca's carrying around the secret that he was drunk the night he died. But I don't think the alcoholism will ultimately play a role in his death at all. I think that was last year's crop of red herrings when you thought he was going to drive off to, find her at the concert or do whatever and crash. I think that this year's batch of red herrings may be that he burns to a crisp, but I don't ultimately think alcoholism will play a role.
Well, a lot of speculation, and I hate to end on that note, but This Is Us, and it's their fault for making us do this. Kate and Samantha, I want to thank you both so much for coming in and breaking down the return of This Is Us. We made it through without an entire box of tissues, so that's really good. For more This Is Us, as well as more entertainment shows and news, make sure to follow PeopleTV. Have a good day, everyone.